a brief about nutrition transition and climate change. We've just heard the madam speak and how, because of climate change, how everything from the seed to the soil to our produce to our health, everything gets impacted because of climate change. And along with that, there is also a nutrition transition. What do we mean? Climate change will affect all forms of malnutrition. Now, my talk would be basically around malnutrition and health and nutrients. So how climate change affects malnutrition? We would think that it could be because of food insecurity, and therefore more undernutrition will happen. But the case is, when food insecurity is there because of climate change, very vulnerable populations, you will see underweight and malnutrition of that variety. However, when there is a mild food insecurity, uh, you don't actually see undernutrition, but you will see a more trend of more of obesity and overweight. The reasoning being because the food insecurity is not as much, and there is a tendency to fill up with wrong kinds of foods. And wrong kinds of foods are usually cheap, so you end up eating a lot of fried stuff or lots of junk and things like that, which come in cheap and which can have a different kind of effect on nutrition. That is also a kind of malnutrition, which we called overweight and obesity. So these are the issues that are pressing along with climate change. What happens is, as low and middle income countries, now India is classified as a middle income country, as we are proceeding with better economic growth and incomes, the kind of diets that we are moving towards is those which are high in greenhouse gas emissions, which is like high CO2, high on carbon print, and so on. So these countries are moving towards that kind of a diets. What are these diets? These would be diets which is more of animal sources, which are processed, high on sugars, high on fats. So these kind of buying capacity is increasing, and the country is moving towards a more westernized, or I would say a developed country kind of diet, which will not only cause harm to the climate or to the environment, but also to the individual by increasing the non-communicable diseases like obesity and overweight. India is already the diabetes capital. There's lots of cardiovascular issues and other health issues which will come up because of this. Now, as we are moving towards these kind of diets, the main target is how would the climate affect our protein intake, because as madam just mentioned, there are ruminant animals and which they add to the load of emissions. So one of the main reason is to kind of go less on meat. Okay, meat and animal products should be less, particularly cattle, goat, sheep, etc., because they also produce methane because of their system. And relatively lesser extent is poultry or pig farming and so on. But even this does add to the carbon footprint, and so the best alternative is going on to plant based foods. But again, plant, now just because you move from animal source foods to plant source foods, does it mean that you are saving the environment in any ways? We have to be very prudent even in the choice of plant foods that we are consuming. If you can take a look here, madam was saying how all the farmers went in for cotton because cotton is commercial and they thought we can make more monies, but it is a very water guzzling kind of a crop. So it is very burdensome on the soil and the environment. Our staple is rice. Rice also takes a lot of water, so does wheat. So our basic staples are all water guzzling staples. So not just moving from animal source foods, but also the right selection of the plant foods would become essential in order to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So coming to, like, the overall scenario globally, 76% of the population gets their source of protein, which is, why I'm insisting talking about protein is because it's one of the most important nutrients. It's a macronutrient. It's what builds your muscle, and it's a bodybuilding kind of a substance nutrient. So 76% of the world gets it from the animal source, sorry, plant sources. Plant sources has is more complete. I will not get into the details. It's more complete, and however, the quality may not be as good as the animal source. However, as we can see, 76% still go by the plant. So we should have been in a good position. But however, because of our abuse of the environment and increasing carbon levels, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, in the soil, now the inequalities between the populations in the world, it's kind of widening. And because of these high concentrations, they have, studies have shown that, they have done experiments where they have increased the carbon dioxide in the soil and saw what effect it had on the nutrients of the produce. So these studies found that with high concentrations, rice, wheat, barley, potatoes, across board, all these plants had a reduction in the protein quality, 7%, 14% in barley, and about 6.4% in potatoes. So not only is it going to affect the quality, and it is also going to affect the nutrient content of the various food products, and this is going to add a very big burden on our health. When we say health, it is again on our resources and our quality of life. So even now we have a lot of protein energy malnutrition in the country, and this is going to add up to those deficiencies in the next 10 to 20 years. So these are all modelings that they have done based on the data and the economy and the economic dispersion that is there. uh, it is not like a real study, but it is projection. But based on these experiments of increasing carbon and then seeing how the nutrients have been changed, and particularly sub-Saharan African countries and India, South Asian countries, which includes India, would kind of bear the brunt of this. So, particularly for India, may lose around 5.3 of protein from the standard diet, because our protein we mainly get from our cereals, because we are rice eaters or wheat eaters. That is the main portion of our diet. So from that the protein is cut off. So that would put around 53 million people at a new risk of protein deficiency. So it is going to affect everybody, each and everybody. So further, some of the studies have also shown that, as it is, you all might know that iron deficiency is anemia is very prevalent in our country. So with this increased CO2 levels, there is reduction in the iron content of the staple foods. So already we are deficient, and in addition to that, if the food that we are producing, the quality, the nutrient quality of that food is not optimal, then you can just imagine the kind of deficiencies the whole population is heading towards. Uh, this is again, it is going to affect India, because we have around 50% of anemia, and then further, if the food that we are eating doesn't have enough iron, it is going to further increase the anemia condition, and this is going to severely affect primarily children and then women of reproductive age. So it is going to be intergenerational. So the kind of children that we are that are going to be born will be affected, and so on and so forth. So this is a very huge problem. And also zinc. These are all important nutrients which are all getting affected because of the high CO2 levels in the soil. So around 2 million people is what they have estimated. So this is a very grim situation. So but what is the solution to this? It is our dietary guidelines need to be changed. We need to kind of have more sustainable and diets which are beneficial not only to us but also to the environment. And building up new guidelines, although not very difficult, it is difficult task, but you can just get it done. But implementing it would be the difficult part. Even when you see a problem, for us to change our behavior is very difficult. And climate change is something that most people can't see. It is not a near and present danger for many unless you are involved in it. For people to become aware and take action, it takes that much longer. So that is the more challenging part. And just avoiding animal food and going into a plant based diet is not the solution. It is also what kind of plant food you select. And coming to our population, we have triple burden. We have undernutrition, we have overnutrition, and we have micronutrient deficiencies. So you have people who actually have to eat in order to become normal. You have people who have to eat less to become normal, and then you have people who are deficient in a lot of ways, called the hidden hunger or micronutrient deficiencies. So one blanket solution will not serve the purpose. Let us eat less meat for everybody, that it may not work, because we are a mixed kind of a population. So in addition to this, we have our staples, rice, food, wheat, and all that. In addition to it, we have other, just to give you some examples, we have other crops. They call them stimulant crops, such as tea, coffee, chocolate. Every evening we have to have our tea, morning coffee, there's cocoa, all these things. But again, these have a very little nutrient value, but they are a big industry. They are a big industry, and our addictions or our dependencies on this is high. And these take away a lot of cropland resources, and the nutrition that we get, or the nutrient values that we get out of these, are less. So also alcoholic beverages, which has become such an important commodity in our lives. You would have remembered in the pandemic days when they were opening up the long queues in all these liquor shops. So that is another important thing that the world over, it's not just us but world over, a lot of croplands are gone to cultivate for alcoholic beverages. And then it again burdens the environment, because the returns are not as much. Now another thing is, we culturally what we eat. So as we mentioned, culturally we are rice eaters. Now somebody comes and tells us don't eat rice because it is like, so much water it is taking. The chances are that we will not give up on our rice. Rather, when it is something like a health issue, that we are diabetic and our doctor asked us not to eat rice, so we may reduce. But climate change is seen as a more distant and not a very personal problem as of now. So what is culturally appropriate? So one of the recommendations to meet this protein requirements is to cultivate or harvest, grow insects, various kind of insects. There are many parts in the world where insects have been eaten, and it has supposedly it's a high quality protein. And they can feed on the organic waste, and you harvest them. So small scale studies have been very successful, but how do you make it into a large scale production? And secondly, they are also bioaccumulators, insects. So whatever heavy metals are there in the organic waste or any contaminants, these insects, they tend to accumulate that. And to get our required amount of protein, etc., we'll have to take larger quantities. And these things kind of, with that you will ingest also the various kind of heavy metals. So the safety and other aspects of it is being looked at worldwide, so as alternate source of protein. But again, coming to the cultural part, how many of us, like here we would be, we are more tilting towards a vegetarian kind of a diet, so it will not be acceptable to everybody everywhere. So these are some of the issues. And now coming to India, it's home to almost one fifth of the world's population, where we are in under the transition. We, as I already mentioned, we have both um, over and under nutrition problems in our country, and this is causing a lot of deficit in terms of our economic growth. Okay. uh, the, what do you call it, the disability adjusted life years, in terms of the health expenses that we have, the productivity that is hampered because of this. So and also maternal and child health, so that again has, recurrent losses. So for India, when we talk about changes that need to be put in place, we can't drastically change our food habits, as in, though they say, like, for example, these insects, or like give up on stimulant crops, and less of rice, etc. But in part we can modify our guidelines and kind of educate people, or steer them towards the right kind of diet. So one of the main things that has happened world over was this Eat Lancet Commission, which looked into how best we can compensate for the protein intake. Uh, if we are moving away from animal sources, what are the foods that are causing the burden on the environment, and how best to strategize these things. So they came up with 5 strategies where they offered suggesting limited intake of red meat, starchy vegetables like potato and other tubers, eggs, poultry, and dairy. You take that in a limited manner, primarily meats. Optional, you can keep eggs for your other poultry and other thing, because it has lesser carbon print. Then stress or highlight on foods which include fish, vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains, and nuts. So NIN has come up with this My Plate, which almost reflects this strategy, wherein half your plate should be covered with, filled with fruits and vegetables, and 1/4, if you're doing, cereals, and that should not be only rice. It should be a mix of cereals, as madam said, like, millets are very resilient. They're low on they guzzling, water guzzling. They don't take up as much water. Very little water they require. They're arid crops, and they are very sturdy, hardy crops, and also very rich in many micronutrients, like B vitamins, etc., are very high in these millets. And it is very essential also, though they say that, there are phytate content, the fiber is also high in millet. So it should be a combination, and you should have little of fats, and your animal protein, as you can see, should be form a very small portion along with your plant protein. So now this kind of a diet plate is what we should advertise, and not a plate full of rice and, little fruits and vegetables. So these are the strategies. I think I'm running out of time. I'll quickly tell you. We need international and national collaboration, have targets, help people move, help guide, move to plant-based whole grains, such food with minimum amount of animal protein wherever required. Now this is easy said than done. So we know the prices, the inflation of fruits and vegetables costs. It can be a detrimental factor. So policies should be such that, these foods are made available, accessible, and affordable. Agriculture priorities also should change. It should be focused more on the quality rather than quantity, and it should look at the diversity of the diet. It should not like every year after year it shouldn't be a single crop, but we should kind of, when we are promoting for agriculture and fisheries, it should have the diversity which can also support the environment, and it can be sustainable. And sustainability in production of high quality output, the intensification should be such that we should be able to preserve at least half of what is left to the next 75 to 80% of the half earth that is available, we should be able to preserve. So our intensification systems also should be such. It's not that you keep including new land into agriculture, like taking away from forest lands and bringing it to cultivation, but rather preserve what is there. And you need to have a very strong coordination and governance. It is good that individuals and villages, communities all come forward. It is a very good thing, but climate change, unlike nutrition, as I mentioned, it is what I do, what I eat will affect my health. But climate change is not seen so directly. It is a social responsibility. It is everybody's responsibility. So if I give up meat is a lesser impactful strategy than, say, the whole village or the whole state decides to go meat free at least 3 days a week. Those kind of approaches, that is where it involves at least small changes on a large scale, can impact, rather than one single person trying to do a lot of things. So coordination with all kinds of governance which look after the lands and the oceans is very important. And in order to reach our sustainable goals, this um, we should reduce the waste. Post harvest wastage is one of the biggest issues that we face, uh, and nearly one fourth of the produce is usually wasted, which is a huge loss, post production loss. So those have to be cut down drastically. So these are the strategies that the Eat Lancet Commission came up with, which various governments at all levels should kind of take up to um, mitigate the climate effect. So now coming to India very quickly, we are not a meat eating kind of country, where they're very less. In fact, amongst all the countries, it was only India which was kind of maintaining the low temperatures because of our emissions are very less. And unfortunately, though our emissions will be less, it is the high income countries which cause more emissions. And who's getting impacted? It is again the South Asia and the African countries. So you can see in India, there are half of India has very less meat eating. It is just in the east coastal areas that you see, and Kerala, of course, where, so even if we stop meat consumption, it is not going to impact as much as if we could control our rice production and slowly move a bit to millets and that kind of a shift. So again, meat, protein, animal source protein, eggs, poultry, everything would be essential for us, especially for our women and children, because we still have a lot of undernutrition. 17% of them are wasted, that is, they don't have enough weight for their height. Then we have 35 who are stunted, who don't grow to their age appropriate height. And then you have underweight children. So this is another problem that we are having. So just drastic measures of feed millets to everybody also may not be um, relevant. We have to focus on the age group, the requirement, and then tailor it to such an extent that we have a win-win situation. So this is just to show you again that that stunting is there, diabetes is there, overweight, obesity is there. 46%, 46 million are stunted, 166 are overweight, and then you have anemia, which is so high. So with this, and if you go for low protein, it is going to affect them very badly. So needs to be a balance when we advocate also. We should see to which type of people we are advocating, what kind of diets, right? So to an undernourished, very malnourished person, we cannot tell you don't eat any animal protein, don't eat eggs, you're causing damage to the climate. So such things, the way we kind of do our communication should be such that we target the right kind of messaging to the right people. So what can we do? As we heard our previous speakers so beautifully, many strategies that they used. At the individual level, if we have to make a difference, homestead gardens, very simple but very effective. As you heard, even if you have, like, crops around your actual farm, if you convert some, say, 20% or 30% of it to grow your fruits of your vegetables, you'll have enough variety. So dietary diversity not only good for the soil, I mean, crop diversity not only good for the soil, but it will also have dietary diversity, which is very, very essential. So homestead gardens, our Dr. Bamji had done some very beautiful studies here and shown that backyard poultry, green leafy vegetables and other vegetables have been effectively grown and sustained in communities. And the results was such that, initially 30% were of them grew. By the end of 3 years, 90% of the households were having. So this kind of advocacy is very essential. And planting trees, as already mentioned, maybe, canteens, eateries, you can develop a network to see how they can have environment friendly menus by changing or adjusting the menu, so that the changes are not very drastic. And we need to equip young children with the knowledge and a positive mindset that our world needs to tackle climate crisis and thrive for a natural world and future generations. We need to educate. Education is the most important thing, and make them see how near and present the danger is, but we can still move forward in a positive direction. Like, the people who are prone to droughts, you should talk to them about the droughts. People who are prone to floods, you can talk to them about floods very specifically, what is most meaningful to them. We need to talk and educate them, and how to mitigate that with the solution, then so that they can identify and then accordingly change their behaviors and so their lifestyle and the environment. Thank you.